It's time for what America really needs. Faith, family, fitness, freedom. From the home of Pikes Peak, here are your hosts Jason Lupo and Aaron Lujan.
Welcome to Faith, Family, Fitness, Freedom on 100.7 The Word. I'm Jason Lupo here with my co-host Aaron Lujan.
Good morning, sir.
And we have a ton of fun conversations to have today. We're going to focus on two topics. The first one being D11's new cell phone policy. And this is a broader topic that I think transcends all of America right now. Education, electronics in the classroom. And so D11 sent out a text message. This was 2 days ago on Tuesday.
And D11 is a school district for those that don't live inside of Colorado.
Yep, it's a school district here in town. They sent out a text message that said, hey, we have a new cell phone policy. I'm still on their text list. And so I click on it, and we're going to just kind of read this cell phone policy really fast. So elementary school, K through 8, cell phones, or K through 5, cell phones must be kept in backpacks.
Okay.
Really no change. Middle school and high school, cell phones and smartwatches will be secured in a yonder pouch for the duration of the instructional day. Here's what they say. Why are we making a change? We did invite one of the D11 school board members here today, and I did not get him on the show. But we'll just read verbatim what they say. For much of the last year, the District 11 Board of Education has been focused on ways to preserve, let's pick this up just a little bit, to preserve the integrity of the learning environment as a result of extensive research and collaboration with various stakeholders, including meetings with employee groups and a working group with parents, students, teachers, and administrators in the design lab. The district revised policies and guidelines for attendance, behavior, and cell phone use to prioritize student learning. Many students use the phones during instructional time, causing significant distractions. Cell phone use during free periods like lunch and study hall also contributes to negative social media interactions, leading to physical conflicts and emotional distress. So they are going to get this pouch. They're required to put their cell phone in it. It gets secured. And then to unlock it, they have to basically pass by an unlocking mechanism that then allows their phone to be unlocked. And what's interesting, it says it will be unlocked at dismissal and also in case of emergency. So, first thoughts, what are kind of the first thoughts that go through your mind here?
My first thought is that Elon Musk's Neuralink will totally hack this rule. I mean, you can't take a chip out of a brain, can you?
So you think that we're just going to go so far deep down this electronic trail that cell phones are going to be a thing of the past?
I think so. I think Elon's Neuralink is a thing. No, joking aside, my first thing is, yeah, of course. I mean, why would we have children on a device when the entire purpose of school is to be paying attention to the teacher and to socialize with people physically next to you? Why are you in a false reality? Snap out of it. Let's go back to pre-2009, probably pre-2012, and get off the screen. I'm sorry.
I get this text message, I pull it up and immediately have these like most mixed reactions, mixed emotions, right? So I look at it from like 500 different ways almost instantly. I'm like, this has some terrible potential, has some great potential. We need to make sure that education is education and electronics are not flooding the classroom, causing this massive distraction, which they've only made worse. Let's keep in mind that they gave these kids tablets and laptops, right. And now we have electronic devices everywhere in the classroom. And in some school districts, we've actually completely removed paper.
Interesting point, because the school districts were the original drug dealers, right? Especially during COVID.
Yeah. So, here we have the electronics that are going crazy. And sure, you get rid of cell phones and you get rid of watches, but it still does not eliminate technology from the classroom.
No.
We still haven't returned to paper books. No. We still haven't returned to cursive, which, by the way, I strongly believe that we need to reintroduce cursive in the classroom for a variety of different reasons. I could take 30 minutes just on that point.
I'll debate you on that, but please continue.
Ooh, I would love that debate. Well, let's make that debate a little bit down the road.
I'm very anti-cursive for the record.
Anti-cursive?
Yes.
So I don't love the idea of writing a cursive or reading cursive, but the development of the brain
fair enough
is where cursive is at, which is why I love cursive. But anyways, so I get that feeling, right, of like, well, you really haven't done much because they're just going to change their technology, how they communicate. There's going to be something else. Kids are intuitive. And so I wonder what everybody else thinks. And so I go online, go on social media, And on the 411 for the 719, somebody had already beat me to it posting this policy. And there's probably like 1,000 comments on this thing. And so I start clicking on names. I start looking at profiles. No, I'm not a Facebook stalker, but I wanted to see what the general consensus, if this was a party line issue. And what I found throughout the course of the day was that, number one, this is not a party line issue. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like the Republicans are like, oh, no. And the Dems were like, oh, yes. No, you had an equal amount of Republicans that were pissed off about this. You had an equal amount of Republicans that were happy about it. And the same thing on the Dem side, same thing on the liberal side. And so it appears that this is not a partisan issue.
And isn't that refreshing? Like, isn't that a nice reprieve from the mudslinging? Like, just to be able to have an issue where people that are not on the traditional party lines are disagreeing and agreeing. I think that's good.
Yeah, I mean, everybody that I talked to, because I talked to a couple people before doing this show about this, and everybody had mixed reactions. I didn't get a very similar one. One of the biggest concerns, both online and in person, when I talked to people and read comments, was this idea of like school shootings, emergencies, things like that. And two things came to mind to me. The first is, well, you know, they say that they're going to unlock these in case of emergency. But when I looked at the Yonder website, it didn't look like there was an easy mechanism to just unlock everybody's phones. So I do feel like that is maybe a problematic situation if there is not one of these unlocking mechanisms in every classroom. But at the same time, and even if there was, right, like you're in a state of emergency, the simpler your emergency action plan is, your EAP is, the better, right? We've actually talked about that on this show before you became a part of the show, but emergency action plans, the simpler they are, the more they're practiced, the easier they are. And so what are we going to do in case of a fire drill? Now we have to add this to the fire drill, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody's going to have to unlock their phone on the way out of the building.
Why?
I mean, how do you have emergency communication after that?
I mean, how did we have emergency communication in 1985?
Well, let's put it this way. I mean, we're once again, we're now in an era of this universe where the Secret Service can't be trusted to do their job. And so if the Secret Service can't be trusted to do their job, how do you expect local school administrators to remember to somehow unlock phones if their phone system goes down? And we saw this back last year because I think it was School District 20, their entire communications went down for an entire day, and they ended up having to cancel school the next day because they couldn't get it back up and running. They had no emergency lines.
So the argument opposed to mandating that phones get put in these quasi-Faraday cages is that in the case of an emergency, they're not going to be able to have an effective way to unlock these phones. It's going to complicate emergency protocol.
I mean, we do already know, and if you look into some of the school shootings and stuff, right, communications coming from cell phones of students in the classroom did help identify where the shooter was in the building, things like that. And so I do think that there's definitely a usefulness of cell phones from an emergency perspective.
So give one to the teacher and that's it.
Well, I mean, once again, now you're trusting one individual to do something under stress and pressure that they're not trained to do. I don't know. I mean, I can tell you that there's been plenty of research about, you know, people dialing 911 or people responding to a call for help or rape or whatever. Like, there's plenty of research in terms of how people respond in emergency situations. And now we're relying on a single sole individual to do something correct when, once again, the Secret Service couldn't even protect our
I think the cost benefit analysis is that, okay, an emergency is probably never going to happen. And if it does, one is too many. I get that argument. But at the end of the day, they're in school every single day. The responsibility is to be focused at school. I don't think that we should be making concessions for emergency protocol at the expense of children being distracted in the school. They need to get off the phone and they need to pay attention. That's my position.
But I mean, if you want to put this back on the teachers, right? And I think there is an element of this, right? The classroom is the teacher's responsibility.
Yes.
And the problem is twofold. Number one, parents have not taught their kids to respect their teacher, maybe for good reasons nowadays. But number two, the teachers don't have control of their classrooms. Why are we at this point to where you now have to lock your cell phone in a bag instead of saying, hey, put your freaking cell phone back in your backpack or you're going home for the day? And is this not a easy out so that the schools no longer have to discipline a child for using their cell phone? I mean, what happens when that computer gets used for the wrong purpose? Now, I mean, what are we going to do? We're going to keep going down this road to where we basically, instead of allowing kids to make wise decisions, we force, a overcomplicated situation on them.
I think we have to, because I don't think parents are being parents anymore. I mean, I don't see the problem, Jason, is that parents are ultimately responsible for the children. They're the ultimate authority. And so the responsibility squarely lies on the parents. Do not take your phone to school, or if you do, because, call me old school, bro, but I don't think we need to have children carrying phones. Like, I am old fashioned. I got away perfectly fine going to the payphone and calling collect to my mom and said, wrestling practice is over. Come pick me up. Like, I survived. You survived. We don't need phones. My children don't have tablets. So, parents, don't allow your children to have phones. But if you do, and they need to be sent to school, instruct them to keep them in the backpack out of a matter of obedience. And then but unfortunately, we live in the real world where parents aren't being parents and children disobey their parents. And the school district, like you said earlier, the teacher's responsibility and domain is the classroom. So if all those former safeguards failed and the parents failed and the children are being disobedient, then I think it's the responsibility of the school district to say, we need to get control of the classroom. We need to educate children. Your parents have failed you. You're failing yourself. Put your stupid phone in the carry-day cage.
Yeah. Well, and at the flip side, right, the other thought that I had was, maybe when you take away the cell phones, maybe you see less violence in schools. Maybe you see less access to social media connects to less access to planning these sort of fights or shootings or whatever. Like, you take away some of that cyberbullying, at least during the instructional time frame, which is 9 hours out of the day. So now you take away the potential for cyberbullying and all the stuff that goes on the internet. And also, you kind of force kids to interact with each other other than cell phones. And that's a huge component of it. Right now, kids are interacting with each other as opposed to interacting with a phone. So I do see both sides of this. What I would like to see happen, though, is I would like to see that, kids are held responsible, but they're also free to make that bad choice. And if they're being punished for it, instead of just going, we're just going to lock up all the phones. I think that there's a happy median here, but I think that really what it came down to is I would love to know what they were doing in the classroom before that we got to this point, if they were just letting it slide or what, because quite frankly, it seems like a over dramatic implementation to me.
I don't see the argument on why, outside of, hey, mom, pick me up, do they need a phone? Like, what is the net benefit? What content are they consuming? I would like to think that these middle school kids are probably consuming mindless, brainwashing, manipulative, mockingbird media propaganda. Like, there's no net benefit to that other than, hey, mom, come pick me up. So I'm sorry. I am clearly on the other side of stick them in the phone because we can't trust our parents.
Yeah, Mr. Beast demographics in Colorado Springs are going to go way down. Sorry, Mr. Beast.
Yeah, Mr. Beast is not my friend.
He's not going to have much viewership in Colorado Springs during the school hour. We're going to take a brief time out. When we come back, we're going to have a new conversation on a new topic that Mr. Lujan over here is going to introduce. So hang with us for 6 seconds.
Full Armor Sports Teams has a new facility for after-school youth programs. It's located at 2380 Montebello near North Academy and Union, with 2 pools for swim lessons and swim teams, a weight room for powerlifting, conditioning, and more. Full Armor Sports Teams is a Christ-centered and family-oriented organization bringing the youth of Colorado Springs together. For more info on after-school and homeschool programs, go to fullarmorsportsteams.com or call 719-629-SWIM.
Welcome back to Faith, Family, Fitness, Freedom on 100.7 The Word. I'm Jason Lupo with my co-host Aaron Lujan.
What's up, bud?
And we just had this great conversation during this break, which we're going to post it online because I think the debate was quite fascinating between Aaron and myself. So go on faithfamilyfit.org. You get the bonus content of this cell phone policy and what's truly wrong with the American school system and how we've failed to hold parents responsible for their own children. All right, Aaron, you've got a topic you want to bring up. I'm going to pass the mic over to you.
Yeah, I wanted to address this call for unity that the establishment has been making. You turn on cable news, you hear from your politicians, unity, unity, unity. We need to unify. the same people that called us grandma killers, the same people that called us neo-Nazis, the same people that I believe, if given the chance, would lock us up in a concentration camp so quick it'd make your head spin. But now that the left and the establishment and certain pockets of the establishment, I should say, are now getting behind Trump, it almost looks like to me that they're trying to save face. They're trying to sort of pretend that all of those attacks and all of that demonization never happened. They're wanting to be your friend now. Oh, yeah. The neo-Nazi stuff and the grandma killing stuff, that was just, that was a bad dream. Miscommunication, misunderstanding. We need to unify now. And I feel like there's a lot of people in the church or conservatives who fall for this crap. Like, yeah, this higher call to, and then a lot of times it's conflated with the principles of nonviolence and the principles that Christians generally agree with, right? And I believe that the enemy is manipulating the church and the followers of Jesus Christ into disobeying 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 wrong verse. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, 14 and 15. Do not be yoked together with unbelievers. For what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? Or what fellowship can light have with darkness? What harmony is there between Christ and Belial? Or what does a believer have in common with an unbeliever? And so my call to the church is that you get in your word and understand that the battle line is between good and evil. And when our enemy, when evil says, let's be friends, let's unify, the answer is absolutely not. What are your thoughts?
I think that this whole political thing is a very interesting dynamic, and I'll tell you why. Number one, we talk about unity, but we still don't know what the platform to unify around is. And that's one of the big things is if you don't have a platform to unify around, what are you unifying to?
Right.
And if you can't settle on the platform, then you're not unified. And the other thing that's interesting with political rhetoric and what we're seeing right now is this idea of unity is really a ploy to gather the more centrist Democrats, the centrists in general, the independents, bring back the establishment Republicans that were never Trumpers. And so what's happening on the Republican side is I think they're trying to appeal to everybody. Now, the question is this rhetoric that's strictly used to go win an election in November? And when the election is over in November, are we going to see more conservative policies? Or are we going to continue to see this appealing to the broader American public? And I don't know what that answer is. I'm praying that right now what we're seeing is political rhetoric to win an election, which Republicans have long struggled to understand that their rhetoric sometimes gets them in deep trouble.
Do you think at this point they're trying to win an election, or are they engaged in public relations damage control at this point?
I think it's both. I think it's interesting, right? So they've removed the pro-life messaging from the Republican platform.
Interesting.
And we thought there was going to be a debate on the floor in the RNC when they went to go vote on the Republican platform to reinstate pro-life language. And the anti-pro-life language, it wasn't pro-choice language. They just skipped over it. They didn't put anything in there.
Guilty by omission?
Yes. So they passed this platform with a voice vote without ever really looking into this whole adding pro-life messaging back. And I understand it, right? It's one of the hottest topics in the country. Nobody understands it, right? Nobody understands what Roe versus Wade did.
Nobody knows what they're talking about on the issue.
And these Democrats, they're just fighting over this Roe versus Wade stuff. But really, at the end of the day, it allowed those states that are like super liberal to be even more liberal in their pro-choice messaging.
It helped you, stupid.
It helped them. But now they want to recodify Roe versus Wade. And the problem is that we have a public that just doesn't understand what that even freaking means.
Well, I think the problem is that we're having a political state issue debate on a national scale. We're trying to fit a square into a round hole. This is weird. Roe v. Wade, like you mentioned earlier, was giving state powers their constitutional rights back. which I think constitutionally speaking is the fairest thing to do. In other words, if we're going to have an abortion debate, these abortion debates should happen amongst Pennsylvanians, amongst New Mexicans, amongst Californians, amongst Floridians. There should not be a national debate. I know it's almost unavoidable.
But the question is that actually true? Because at the end of the day, right, murder is murder is murder. And so murder
right,
is
but we
legal,
also have the
it's illegal in
Constitution,
50 states.
Right, I agree with you ideologically, but the Constitution is the law of the land. And if we're going to prosecute murder, it has to be done within the context and authority of the Constitution.
Correct.
So that's why it should be a state debate. Now, that's the reason why it gets convoluted at a national scale, is because nobody knows what they're talking about because it's a state issue.
Yeah. And what it did do was it did, in some states, drastically reduce the ability for abortions to occur.
Sure.
Especially the extreme abortions, right? The abortions the day before your due date. This whole due date, abort the baby while it's crowning is absolutely absurd.
Mm-hmm.
Or in some states,
Satanic.
you can abort the baby up until the point it leaves the delivery room after it's been delivered.
Yeah, life begins at conception.
It's just crazy. It's crazy. So you have that. I mean, that's the easiest one to go, okay, we see this rhetoric that is drastically different than what we've seen in the past. But there's other issues. There's other issues that face the same thing, the immigration issues, all that. The racism debate, the Black Lives Matter stuff, the LGBTQ stuff, we're seeing a lightening of the rhetoric against some of those things in a lot of ways. Maybe not the border stuff, because that's still a pretty strong rhetoric. But if you look at who spoke at the RNC, we have the president of the Teamsters coming to the RNC, which Republicans have long been seen as kind of anti-union. And here's the Teamsters president going, hey, the Dems don't even want to work with us, so we're happy to be here for the first time in the history of this nation. The RNC is allowing him to speak. And we've seen people walk away from the Dem side that are part of the LGBTQ community. It's just it's really, really interesting to see what the Republicans are doing. And the question becomes, is this going to change the platform, or is this solely rhetoric to win an election? And then is it okay if it's solely rhetoric to win the election, but once they get into office, they have a strong stance? Is that okay? And I think that's what a lot of Americans are battling, that question right there.
Yeah, and I think we might have a disagreement on, Jason, are you saying that you think the rhetoric and call for unity is to win an election? Is that your position?
I 100% think that's what the Republicans are doing. They're choosing their words wisely. They're choosing how to respond to this abortion debate very wisely in order to make sure that they are not turning off voters, to make sure that they get Donald Trump in office. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, and that's why I have a problem with it. Politics is just a game to me. Like I sit outside of politics and say we should be speaking the truth boldly to the glory of God. I don't buy into political maneuverisms, and I think politics is dead. It's a broken institution in this country. It doesn't leave room for courageous men of faith to boldly speak the truth to the glory of God. And that's the problem.
We're going to take a brief time out. When we come back, we're going to wrap this show up. Hang with us for 30 seconds.
Teamwork is at the core of any successful organization. At Full Armor Sports, led by national champion coach Jason Lupo, a Christ-centered approach to sports fundamentals and fitness has earned his company the respect of athletes and their parents. Full Armor Sports is committed to helping youth in our community experience growth through sports and to strive for improvement and excellence. Further, youth compete as individuals, coming together with a sense of teamwork, camaraderie, and support for one another. At Full Armor Sports, the reality is achievements, failures, wins, and losses eventually fade away. But the bonds team members form through competition evolve into relationships lasting forever. Learn more at fullarmorsports.com.
Welcome back to Faith, Family, Fitness, Freedom on 100.7 The Word. I'm Jason Lupo, here with my co-host, Aaron Lujan. And we are at the point of this show where we are going through our little shotgun wrap-up. So I'm going to give the mic to Aaron Lujan. You got 30 seconds. Wrap it up.
Next time you hear a call for unity as a follower of Jesus Christ, understand that there is no fellowship with light and darkness. And that's not a call for violence. That's not a call for aggression. That's a call to follow in the steps of Jesus. Love your enemies. but love requires us to tell the truth and to do it boldly. And I think the church needs to do a better job at telling the truth courageously and boldly.
Yeah, I think what we're getting at here is, once again, we're back to the same topic conversation. We would love to see the culture change. I think that's what you're getting at, Aaron, is that we want to see this world change because of culture, and we want the American people to buy into this conservative Christian viewpoints. And here we see that the Republicans have changed their strategy. Their strategy is now to kind of speak in a rhetoric way, or use their rhetoric in a way that is going to draw the more centrist, the independents, the establishment Republicans back to the party. And I see where we have the potential to definitely go the wrong way there.
Yes.
And so I get it. It's an interesting time for sure. It's probably the most interesting election that I've ever seen. But we're going to be here and we're going to continue to talk about it. So
hopefully it's not the last one, Jason.
Oh, who knows? It's a republic if we can keep it.
God love America.
Amen. Hang with us. Join us next Saturday, 9 a.m., 100.7 The Word. Check us out, faithfamilyfit.org. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day.